York. Ms. Velázquez is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Nagy, worsening climate-driven natural disasters all over this country, not just along the coasts, are impacting the affordability and availability of property insurance that helps mitigate risk. A recent report by the National Multifamily Housing Council indicated that the average increase nationwide for property insurance coverage at apartment communities was a staggering 26% through early 2023. And in some markets, or at some properties, like many affordable housing communities, we have seen triple-digit increases. Soaring operational costs like this are straining property operations and adding to the cost of housing. How can this committee work towards providing some relief and drive greater capacity in the insurance and reinsurance markets to help address these soaring costs faced across the country?
Yes, the issue of insurance for multifamily housing, and particularly for new affordable multifamily housing development, is a major issue. And this is another area where I think consumer protections do have a role to play. In New York City, we're seeing insurers ask questions about, how many folks living in this apartment are going to be receiving Section 8 benefits. Now, in any other area, of New York housing law, that would be source of income discrimination.
Right.
But with the insurers, we do not know what formulas they're using. They really treat their rate setting as a proprietary black box. And as a result, we have seen a lot of discrimination in how prices are set using algorithmic models, such as to model things like crime rates. So, this is obviously an issue that is very concerning. State regulators really have a role to play there, but so does the federal government. And that's why the Federal Insurance Office's data request is so important, and that's why we support it, because we really can't even know what the problem is until we get a sense of what's happening at the different state levels, so we can better, compare, as the Vice Chair said.
So there is a role for the federal government.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Yui, is there anything you would like to add?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Yui, it is no secret that LMI and communities of color are often the most impacted by devastating flooding and other climate-related events. Within these communities, affordable housing or smaller rental properties can be disproportionately impacted, as the current structure of federal flood resiliency and disaster mitigation efforts is directed elsewhere. How can we leverage federal resources and tools to drive better disaster protection and mitigation efforts toward the most vulnerable?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
How can the federal government redirect resources to mitigate the impact of climate change in communities, in LMI communities and community of color? How can we leverage federal resources and tools to drive better disaster protection?
Yes, ma'am, thank you for that question. I believe that with all housing and certainly government assistance programs and things like that, if we look at the existing housing stock that we have, new construction is already so energy efficient, and we build such a tight house in new construction because of the regulations that we have now, and we are happy to do that. But if we look at the existing housing stock, and I can't remember the exact number of housing that there is, that is where we can address a lot of climate change, I believe. Homes and projects that were built in the 70s, to give them incentives for better insulation, higher SEER unit and HVAC unit, caulking around the windows and things like that would go a long way in helping climate change.
My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.